Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, it's hard to argue with free, especially when there are some really fascinating and interesting films taking part in an event like this. But if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you are in the seats with, once more, as always. My name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast, where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of industry professionals and pick their brain about not only current projects, but state of the industry, what got them started, anything else we can think of in a light and conversational way. And it's because it's how we like to do it over here. And if you'd like to subscribe to this podcast, I certainly hope that you would, because you are listening to us right now. You can do that over at Apple, over at Spotify, or you can find every single one of our episodes archived on our YouTube channel. Also, we'd love it if you'd follow us on social media. You can do that at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at either at In the Seats or at It's Podcast One for all sorts of updates. And finally, if you wouldn't mind paying us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, with all the latest and greatest movie news, reviews, contests, lists, anything we can think of that our hard-working team is cracking away on, we certainly do appreciate it. On this episode, we've got a good one. We are talking with filmmaker, cinematographer, but also now chair and on the board of the Human Rights Watch Film Festival, which is starting tonight online, from tonight through the 22nd, and it is a diverse and really interesting lineup of films that deal with a myriad of human rights issues, and there's some really fantastic stuff in there. And like I said, it is absolutely free. You can go to their website for more details. Google it, and you'll get all the details you need. But I would recommend you check out a lot of these films, because there's some seriously, amazing stuff in there that deserves to be seen. And we talked with Nicholas about this and just sort of the process of choosing movies and going through it all, and the uniqueness of having a film festival, in the digital space, as it were, because it's not necessarily something we see every day, but it allows these films to get to a wider audience, and it's a wonderful thing that they're partnered up with Hot Docs for their second year in a row. It's the 18th version, if I'm not mistaken, and with people like Jennifer Beichwal and Nick Pencier on the chair, sitting in the chairs for the festival, there's bound to be great stuff to come for the festival. So I hope you enjoy our talk with Nicholas, because I know I did.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for your interest.
Now, I'm always kind of curious, like, walk me through, I guess, what led you to sort of joining the team and being on the chair for the Human Rights Watch Film Festival. Because it strikes me as an interesting time to not just be alive. I think that's probably a loaded statement, but to sort of be involved in something like this.
Well, it was a great honor to be asked to help with the festival, and I've been a big fan of the festival for a number of years. I've had the privilege of having a few of the films that I've worked on be selected for Human Rights Watch film festivals in different cities around the world, including the Toronto one. My partner Jennifer Beichwal and I have been huge supporters of Human Rights Watch itself for many years, and the incredible work and research that they do under often really super difficult and dangerous situations to bring out very credible, rock solid research that ripples out into media and journalism, into government policy decisions around the world, into NGOs and aid work. They're a fantastic organization. So it was a real honor when they asked us if we would help with the film festival. We're filmmakers for many years and plugged into some communities, and obviously go to a number of festivals ourselves. So we can cast a net for hopefully really interesting films. And I think this year's lineup is a spectacular 5 films with a real range. So we're really happy about them.
No, and you're absolutely right. And I'm also pretty curious, because if I'm not mistaken, this is probably your first time on the other side of the aisle, maybe, when it comes to film festivals, being a part of like programming and organizing, as opposed to sort of just showing your films. Like, I'm kind of curious, walk me through that experience. I've got to imagine it was a unique one.
Yeah, it's actually really wonderful, and we've had no illusions, having been around film festivals all of our careers. You know, there are these amazing moments and gathering of communities and films, and we're so lucky in Toronto to have both TIFF and Hot Docs right in our hometowns, and so we've become quite integrated with those. Jennifer's on the board of TIFF, and I'm on the board of Hot Docs, but it's an enormous amount of work to put together a film festival, and there's a real team behind this one. So to be part of that team and to be able to contribute, is, you're right, it's a great vantage. We love to talk about films and way they're relevant, and putting together a like this issue in the human rights, you know, that we wanted to make sure didn't get left behind, and all of the films represent issues that Human Rights Watch itself has active research going on. So it's you know, tidy that way, in terms of really being a focused curation, of things, and all those challenges, as you're sitting with the team and trying to choose the films and getting to watch films you haven't seen before, and learn things that you're glad to learn, even if they're difficult often, is a wonderful privilege.
And I mean, it's one of those things where, because I mean, even on the larger scale film festivals, like themes will appear, but I love how you say how you can really sort of curate to sort of the mandate that the Human Rights Watch organization sort of has and sort of goes in. I mean, how many films were submitted? Like, is it like how big of a process is it? Because I mean, I've got to imagine you were probably sifting through a good few hundred documentaries, if not more.
There would have been certainly that number, to begin with, and I certainly didn't watch 100 documentaries, but you know, doing what we do see a lot of films, and we are aware of colleagues who have projects at various stages. So some of them we will have known about already, and then the Human Rights Watch Film Festival is almost a traveling roadshow, in
Yeah.
that it does happen in a number of cities all around the world. And like I say, we've been lucky enough to have films of ours programmed in various iterations of that. So it does attract in any given year the films that are relevant, and so there's some that rise to the surface already that might have been programmed in the London Human Rights Watch Film Festival, or the New York Human Rights Watch Film Festival. That if they've been successful, then those rise to the top as well.
No, and I mean it really, the whole idea of programming kind of fascinates me. And I mean, especially this year, given not only how it's gone free, but it's gone to the virtual space. Does that kind of put any kind of added pressure on you to make something that maybe isn't necessarily, because like you say, in the past it has been a road show and there have been various iterations, but now this is seems to be the show more or less.
Something's lost and something's gained in my calculation of having a virtual film festival this year. I mean, it's a wonderful moment to gather a community in a theater, and we've done it at the TIFF facilities, and we've done it at the Hot Docs facilities in Toronto in the past, and they've always been very well attended, and these films spark discussion. You walk out of that theater with your friends, the people you came with, and you're talking, and you might be spurred to action, and that's part of it. And you're certainly, your consciousness has been raised about an issue in a way that you just can't keep to yourself. So we can't do that this year, obviously, but there's this wonderful new blossoming of possibility where, for the first time, people who might be interested in these films who are outside of Toronto are able to see them.
Mm,
You need to buy a ticket, but the ticket is free, so you need to sign up. And also, it's more flexible this year, in that if you buy a ticket, you have the whole window of the festival to watch the film that you have selected, or the films that you have selected. You don't need to do it at 6 o'clock on a Thursday. And
right.
if by chance you were busy you had a conflict, if it was at the theater and you couldn't see it, here there are ways to expand this audience, expand this community, community in the digital realm. And I hope that people do, if they see a film that they're really going to be interested in, that they call their friends and say, hey, let's all buy tickets to this, let's watch it together, and then let's talk about it afterwards and replicate some of those dynamics that happen in a live film festival.
And I mean, that is something that we've lost, like, we've really lost, given what's going on, just sort of that ability to sort of congregate and talk about film and just sort of to be able to create these dialogues. I mean, we can approximate it in the virtual space, but it's not really the same, is it?
It's not the same. It's not the same. And we're all living through that in various parts of our lives. And yet here you and I are talking about film and talking about these ideas, and people will be listening, and hopefully those molecules are still bouncing into each other. And so someone who hears this and hears about this festival will then go to the website, the Human Rights Watch website or the Hot Docs website, and find the tickets and watch something. So all is not lost. And yes, in part, we're just getting through it. But that's what we have to do. And I think that there's still a tremendous upside. The watching of movies and consuming of media has gone way up in the pandemic, of all kinds. And so I'm really happy that this moment of curation of these 5 really strong films along various themes of human rights struggles and challenges all around the world of different kinds, is able to be seen. And I think there's as much of an appetite as ever for watching these kind of films in a pandemic.
No, and you're absolutely right. I mean, and particularly when it comes to the lineup, I think I was particularly struck by Ava Mulvad's film, Love Child. And I mean, just sort of the journey that she's sort of embedded along the way, and just the fact that you're capturing moments in time, and these stories don't always have resolutions. These stories will keep going on, and I mean, that's really an important message to get through with films like this.
Wake Up on Mars and Ava Mulvan's Love Child are the 2 films that deal with refugee situations. And you are exactly right. Both of those stories are ongoing. We have these incredible, intimate, privileged viewpoints onto these very specific and some at moments incredibly painful stories of people who have had to be dislocated from their countries of origin and then try and live a very precarious existence in Sweden and in Turkey, in those 2 films. And neither of those stories have been resolved. Those couples, those protagonists of each of those films are still struggling for a more permanent status in the countries that they have asked for asylum in. So these are not historical documents. These films really do open a window onto things that are happening now and are ongoing. You're right.
No, it's amazing to see, and it's important to see. And I mean, I'm kind of curious, and this might be a loaded question, but bear with me. Throughout your career, like, because you've directed, you've been a cinematographer, you've worked on various different aspects of the process of filmmaking. And I'm kind of curious, how do all the jobs that you've had in the past kind of inform you sitting on the chair of a organization like this to pick films for a film festival like this? I'm kind of curious, does the job experience sort of help this process, or?
That's a really good question. And I know when we're working on films of ours, you get so close to a subject. And yes, you're bringing all of your specific technical knowledge. I'm a cinematographer, and I'll always be conscious of that. When I'm watching a film, the cinematography element. When we are so close to a film that we lose sight of we lose our objectivity when we're in the edit process, we always bring in trusted colleagues and friends. And it's usually a mix of people who work in film, so have all of that knowledge. Maybe they're an editor, but they've worked through story problems before, but also complete outsiders who aren't from the film industry, but who love film or are really interested in film, and I think it takes everyone, and our team that did this programming would represent those different skill sets. I'm not sure that filmmakers are always the best to curate a slate of films like this, because you're right, we might be coming with a particular bias, and so that fruitful discussion with a multiplicity of views around a table, a virtual table in this case, of the programming committee, I think everyone keeps everyone else honest, and hopefully then it's really a well-tempered and tested list that rises to be this final list of films.
For sure. Now, what ultimately got you into this business? Was it the shooting aspect, or was directing always sort of the impetus for you? Like, I'm always kind of curious to hear sort of the origin story of how people got started.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people who work in film, and there's such a diversity of different paths that I think it really describes, um, maybe a psychological profile that is entrepreneurial, that doesn't mind going outside of the mainstream or the easy way, because there are so many different stories. In my case, I studied English literature at university, and I always loved storytelling. And then I also always took pictures, still photographs in the day, and I had a dark room as a teenager where I would develop black and white film. Um, and that somehow came together. There were a number of just, I guess, um, epiphanies as I tried different things and fished around for a career and a direction. And film just kept exciting me. And I worked, I didn't go to film school, but I worked on big feature film sets on the bottom rung of every ladder in every department, pretty much: camera and grip and lighting and office and driver, production assistant, coffee getter.
Mm.
But I was a sponge, and I loved absorbing all of that knowledge, and especially all of the problem solving, the creative problem solving, the logistical, the technical. Um, I think that has always kept my interest going in film, with the final goal of being able to tell a story that can transform people, that can inform people, that can move people. It's such a powerful medium as it layers music and writing and visual elements and all of these other media into this distillation of a finished film. I think it's obvious why it really is the medium of our age.
Yeah, and I mean, it's another one of those things because I'm always fascinated, especially with the documentary form, because for people on the outside looking in, they think, information, information, and then talking heads. But I mean, especially in the years I've been doing this job, the form of documentary filmmaking has evolved so much. And I'm kind of curious from your perspective, how important is that evolution of documentary storytelling, especially when it comes to telling stories like the ones that are in the Human Rights Watch program?
There's this wonderful moment in documentary that has been building for a while and is in full bloom right now, where um, if you look at any of the films here in this Human Rights Watch lineup, they really represent the power of the journalistic side of documentary. They are there, you know, on site with incredible access on very intimate moments in some cases, very large moments in some cases, like A la Calle, about the big demonstrations and all of the challenges around the democratic process in Venezuela. So there's that immediacy of reporting on something that is real, and yet there is quite a lot of space to interpret, to apply filmmaking craft and
Mm.
syntax. And in these cases, I really feel never gratuitously, never with a heavy hand, but in a way that helps to tell the story in an authentic way. And I think if you look at the obvious trust that has been built up in these films between the filmmakers and the subjects, the authenticity is palpable. And that's such a strength of documentary, that you are using craft, you are using the language of filmmaking, but you're basing it in reality, and it's just so powerful and so important, I think, in this day and age, when the churn of the news cycle and the sometimes superficiality of all of our social media feeds really risks kind of thinning out really important issues. The longer form of documentary, the time that you're going to take out to meditate on these issues, I think can be much more profound sometimes in understanding some of these very important global issues that are brought up in these films, for example. And documentary is a perfect way to do that.
And, and you're absolutely right. And I mean, that kind of dovetails into something else I wanted to ask, just to start putting a bow on all this. Because of the global situation and how we're all having to be on various forms of lockdown, we're all watching more. And also, cinema in general seems to have been very much democratized. There isn't sort of that scale of, oh, there's this or then there's that. It's like it's all on one level now. And I'm kind of curious, from your perspective as a filmmaker, as a storyteller, as a programmer, how do you think we sustain the level of interest of curation that we seem to have now these days, just because we have the time to do it, when the noise starts to ramp back up and sort of the pop culture feed and the social media feed tends to get a little more churning back onto what it used to be?
That's a really good question, and I wish I had that crystal ball. There are a lot of pressures, and I wonder how much the pandemic and everything that it's brought is just catalyzing things that would have happened anyway. But it's just speeding them up. I mean,
Yeah.
certainly the move to more and more streaming and online and watching at home. And yet, the best things about legacy media, any media, don't die. They hang on. And so this year's is virtual. I think, I mean, if you look at the Toronto International Film Festival or Hot Docs, I think they've really discovered the positive side of running virtual film festivals. And I think a lot of festivals going forward will probably be hybrid, when they have the option to have people back in darkened cinemas and have the red carpets and the lineups and all the in-person buzz. I think hopefully it will be a virtuous circle, that they'll still be able to have all of that that wonderful crucible of a film festival, but also have the bigger reach, like you described, the more democratic reach that the virtual aspect of these has provided. That people who would have impediments, whatever they may be, to getting to a physical screening now can still participate. And I would hope that would be the future, but that especially film festivals do go back to an in-person presence
Mm.
as well. It's a wonderful gathering moment to see a film together and be able to talk about it after and feel like you're part of a moment in that screening.
No, and you're absolutely right. I mean, I think we're in for a really interesting time. I mean, not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just going to become what it's going to become once we figure out what that is. And I mean, I think the lineup that you guys have put together is really sort of a great push in that right direction, because it's going to allow for a lot of these films to be like you say, be available to so many more people who may have not had the option to do it. And it's a fantastic lineup. And I just want to say thank you again for the time, and congrats again on the work. Thank you. Thanks again.
David, thank you so much for your interest. And yes, I hope everyone is prepared to be inspired. The tickets are free. You do need to sign up, but they're free, and you can watch them over at your leisure and according to your schedule over the window of the festival. So I really hope people enjoy the films.
I think they will, and we're going to be pushing it pretty hard because it's an important thing, and I think these movies really deserve as big an audience as we can humanly get for them.
Thanks so much, David. That was great. Hope there's some good
Cheers.
stuff in there you can use.
Oh no, for sure, absolutely. Thank you again, man.
Good. Okay.
Bye. And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.